So I think our taste in music gradually can change over time. And I'm not talking about like really big changes, like in tango music, that if you don't like 70s, 80s orchestras or modern orchestras right now, if you don't like Romantica Milonguera right now, it's not very likely to change tomorrow, and maybe not in 1 year either, and possibly even never. But it's more likely, and I think that also happens in other genres and just for our personal enjoyment. But in tango, I think it's more likely that your taste changes gradually, like evolves gradually over time. Not, necessarily with any really big changes, but there might just be like an orchestra where you don't like a certain time period in the golden age, or you might not like a certain singer, or you might simply not like certain songs with the same singer with the same circumstances, but like them later, a few years later, a few months later, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. But I think that's quite interesting about taste in music in general. I think this could happen in like any genre, but as we're talking about tango, um, I can only speak for myself, but it's probably quite likely that there will be some gradual change in your taste, and that can also be simply because you're tired of hearing one song, and then one other song sounds very interesting and whatever. Um, but anyway, what I want to talk about more specifically today is how I feel like maybe not my taste is changing, but I've come to appreciate a part of Biagi that I didn't always enjoy so much. And yes, this moment has come quite suddenly. And I think it's interesting how, yeah, there can just be this switch. Like it's like a switch in your head, and then suddenly you like some music. So for some context, so I always say the golden age of tango is between 1935 and 1945. And yeah, it can be maybe 1946 or even 1947. But I think that's like the most, probable thing we can determine is that it's from 1935 to 1945. And you see in that period, especially from the early 40s, from 1940, 1939, 1940, like at that moment, like almost all the orchestras were rhythmical and a bit fast. And you can, if you look at almost whatever orchestra that's important, you see that they are they're quite upbeat. And then throughout the first half of the 40s, they gradually slow down. And even if it's like at some point, maybe 1943, they've reached this point where they don't necessarily go much slower, but then they become more dramatic. So it's also a change from somewhat lighter music, even though it's not always the case that if you have fast music or upbeat music that it's not melancholic. But also in a musical sense, the music becomes more dramatic, more complicated. And this is especially a case, or it's especially visible in some of the more dramatic orchestras, or I should maybe say like the orchestras that created a relatively complex sound to dance to. So it's difficult dance music like Troilo, Lawrence, Pugliese. You see that especially in those orchestras. But then you also have the other orchestras that are, in a sense, more simple to dance to, like D'Arienzo and Biagi and Tanturi, whatever, that they also become more dramatic, and the music might not be necessarily harder to dance to, but the structure just becomes different. And well, also in the Biagi orchestra, I've never really played like a lot of stuff from the like slower Biagi, for example, from 1945, because I'm always busy playing the Biagi that's upbeat and rhythmical and maybe more at its peak, like D'Arienzo, so around 1938, 1939, 1940, these two orchestras, and so also the orchestra of Biagi, they are quite rhythmical, they're quite fast, and in this sense they're very useful for the DJ because they create a contrast with a lot of the slower music that comes later. So it's useful in managing energies and stuff like that. But Biagi still becomes a dramatic orchestra at some point. So the style changes, and I think there's some reasons why I might not have liked Biagi with Amor, because that's what the video about. It could be that I just didn't like the voice. So as we shall see, Alberto Amor uses a lot of vibrato in his voice. So in everyday language, that would mean like he makes his voice vibrate quite a lot. And this is he's actually not the only one in tango music who does that. And I always needed to get a bit used to that with certain singers like Raúl Berón or Florial Ruiz. And yeah, but it could be for another reason. And I think the Biagi orchestra sounds quite sharp. So the instruments sound quite sharp. And then when he slows down, I feel like the violins can sound very sharp, and it's almost like they're false in a way. And people are gonna probably dislike me saying that. But it's on Biagi, when it's slower, it almost sounds sometimes on the border of not being in tune or something. But now, as I keep just also as a DJ exploring the limits of what I want to play and what I can play, and try to innovate myself without doing anything weird. It's normal that you look at orchestras like Biagi that are like they're still, even in 1945, this is still a really good orchestra. And I think it's normal that you go explore like what other Biagi can I play, and I don't always want to play Biagi with Ibanez, Valgas, with Ortiz. I don't always want to play Biagi instrumental, and the well, as we shall see, the 50s Biagi is also dramatic, but I just think it's less danceable. It's not in the golden age. There's less variety in the music. The singer is very present. But yeah, then you find a different kind of Biagi that's actually slower and has its own charm for being slower and more dramatic, and is a different dancing experience than the faster Biagi. So I say let's just listen to this song. I've chosen one song that I usually only listen to in the Di Sarli version, so I didn't know this version very well. But I think it's really worth taking a look at. So let's listen. So if you want to listen to this song without any of my interruptions, just check the video description on YouTube for a link to the full song. Let's play this. So what you notice immediately, very slow tempo. It's Biagi, but it's a very slow tempo. It's very romantic. It's very warm music, and it sets the tone immediately for this song with its very, very dramatic lyrics. So I knew this one as a Di Sarli Duran song. It's a typical Di Sarli Duran 1940 song. It's more dramatic than any of the Di Sarli that comes before, maybe also a bit less danceable already. I think a lot of people just prefer playing Di Sarli Rufino and Podestà. But anyway, it's not about Di Sarli, but this Biagi kind of shares the same sentiment. Let's listen to that again. Ding. So you hear already a typical Biagi effect. So he always makes these playful sounds with the piano, and you'll notice that throughout the song that this is still very much present. It's still Biagi style. So what you also notice is that apart from it being slow and dramatic, it's still quite a kind of choppy. So the music is still kind of choppy. So it's still sharp. You hear Anyway, let's hear what comes next. So this is very interesting. Listen to this. You're going to hear two instruments. This is very typical of Biagi of this period. So you're going to hear two different instruments or instrument groups within the orchestra make a solo. And it's actually the same, they're studying the same melody, but they're doing their own part. It's almost like a voice duet. Listen to this. I think this is quite unique to Biagi of this period. I'm not sure how much this happens in other orchestras, but it feels like a trademark thing of this period with Biagi. Violin and bandoneon. So if you can look at it visually. Violin. Now it comes. Violin. But you can also highlight the bandoneon instead. Now the orchestra becomes one whole again. So you mostly hear the violins, but everything comes together. So the solos end, the duet ends, and then everything comes together as one orchestra again. Very dramatic. Ding, Biagi is Biagi. Bandoneon again. Same effect kind of the duet. And now it's gone. Now you only hear the beat. Instruments are gone, you only hear the beat. What's also interesting, it's still Biagi, so even though you have these very dramatic solos, which are great for dancing, like you can follow these solos and you can go all the way, but you still have to you have the bouncy Biagi beat in the background. And it's always there because that's also what makes it dance music, right? If you only have solos, then it becomes kind of silent, but you can dance to that. But a lot of people dance to the background rhythm. And of course, I wish they would dance not only to the background rhythm, but to all kinds of things happening in the music. But they first need to understand by hearing what happens in music. So anyway, let's continue. So now the singing starts, as you could hear. So like I said, this guy makes his voice vibrate a lot, but you know why this is so golden age still? It's the last year. It's from 1945. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's like, it's from 1945. So that would be the end in my terms, like my way of looking at it would be almost like the final year, maybe with 1946 of the golden age. What's so great, it's like, there's more emphasis on singing here than before, like in 1940 or 1949. So that's just a gradual development of tango music. But in this case, once he's singing, you'll notice that he's just like another instrument. So he could be some kind of violin or a cello with his voice, and he's being accompanied by another like usual in Golden Age tango music. There's always another instrument going together with the singer. So let's hear that. Violin. And it becomes almost inseparable from his voice in this case, because they're very in tune. But you'll notice that throughout this song, the singer, he remains a part of the orchestra sound, and not just like, look at me, I'm the big singer and I'm the most important guy here. But no, he's hired by the orchestra to make the music more attractive and more complete, because as humans we can hear what he's saying. We cannot really hear what the violin is saying. We can imagine that, but the violin doesn't have words, but they're still sharing a sentiment.
Nada queda ya, nada por decir, te aprestas tú a empezar y yo para partir. Pero por mi amor, cállate la Dios, te pido ese rincón para morir.
So one thing I really wanted to note is, I could highlight things and then keep talking for an hour. Let's not do that. But what I find very interesting about this song is that it's also another sign of a singer being part of an orchestra. Notice what he's doing here. Violin is very high. His voice is high. It's like up here. Now it becomes low. Vive. Bandoneon. Very dark. Un soñador quise alcanzar para abrazar mi fe. So the piano is a bit higher, but it also creates it's for dancing, for danceability probably, but it's also part of the story being told here. Very low, very dramatic. Sediento soñador quise alcanzar tu amor para abrazar mi fe. Rodé y entre mis lágrimas ahogué los dulces pétalos de luz que desfloraban como un turbión tus labios. Por ellos me negué a la vida, por ti me resigné al dolor. Yo, que de rodillas a tu alma quiero amar, tus labios me dirán adiós. Typical Biagi, piano solo. Whole orchestra. Por ti me resigné al dolor. Very dramatic, slow ending. Silent. Very dramatic, I love it. Rodillas a tu alma quiero amar. So how more Argentine can this become? On my knees I want to love your soul. I don't know I'm not sure if you're going to find that in Dutch poetry, but in Argentina, yes, very Argentinian. So beautiful how he sings it, the orchestra around it. Alma quiero amar. Silent. Labios me dirán. Your lips will tell me goodbye. Is Biagi so? Boom, boom. So might not be a surprise that this song has been playing in my head for a week now, and I'm gonna play tonight as a DJ as first song in a tanda. So yeah, it's just typical of what I said in the beginning. I was never really aware of this song, and now I really like it, and I'm even a bit obsessed with it. And I really enjoy what the singer is doing here, even though I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of his voice, but even that can change over time. You can actually start to like his voice. Anyway, I've said enough. Thanks for listening, and maybe I'll you know I'll dedicate some more videos to this style at some point, but I hope this is clear now.